do is start off with neck and shoulders and some of that allergy pressure point stuff. And what do we need for all that? Let's have a strap. If you don't have a strap, you can use a scarf or you can grab a belt. And then we'll start off with a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you can get one of your longer couch cushions. You're going to place it behind you. And we want about 5 inches or so between the bolster and our low back. Then make sure that your strap is going to be nearby so you don't have to get up to find it. And if your strap is looped, go ahead and unloop it so you have a really long strap or belt. And then, we're not done yet. Grab your blanket. I'd like you to have it a little longer, so maybe you unfold it to where it's this length, or you can even make it longer and unfold it again. Then you're going to roll it up so you have a really long burrito. Then we'll take the soles of the feet and bring them together. Take the blanket and place it on top of your feet. Grab the ends and tuck them underneath the calves, and if the blanket is long enough, underneath the thighs. Once you start to lay down, if this is too much for the hip opener, you can have your blocks handy. And I like to take the block underneath the blanket so that there's some cushion that's nice and soft rather than having the edge of the block underneath the thigh. So that's an option. Then you'll take your hands behind you, start to lie down on the bolster or your couch cushion. Bring the arms down along the sides of the body. Then turn your palms to face up. Soften the gaze or close the eyes. And then just take a long breath in through the nose. And this first one out the mouth. And let the lips close, little space between the teeth so the jaw feels relaxed. And begin to take long, even breaths. So this long inhale and an equal length exhale. Now you're more than welcome to stay here, relaxed with the arms by the sides of the body. If you want to start to move into the pressure points that can kind of help with sinus congestion, you'll reach your arms up towards the ceiling. And you're going to bend the elbow. So your elbow will be stacked over the shoulder. Interlace your fingers. Take the thumbs and place them at the bridge of the nose. So your thumbs are framing the top of the nose. Or another way to find this, the placement is, if you know where your eyebrows kind of begin, you're going to slide the thumbs right underneath where you feel the ridge of the eye socket. And then slide them a little further down so you're at the top of the nose. You're just going to apply a little bit of pressure here. So your thumbs, really, it almost feels like the thumbs just get heavier. You're not having to push thanks to gravity. Then you're going to slide the thumbs right underneath the edge of the eye socket, or right underneath the eyebrows. You'll begin to separate the thumbs so that they slide closer and closer towards the temples. And then once you're riding at the temples, you can separate the fingers and let the other 4 fingers, or technically 8, come to the crown of the head and do a little bit of massage for the temples. And you might re-interlace the fingers, and now take the thumbs across the forehead above the eyebrows until they meet in the center of the forehead. And you can slide them down, go underneath the eyebrows, slide to the temple, go above, coming back to the forehead. And you might do that one more time. Slide them down towards the bridge of the nose, underneath the eyebrows, along the ridge of the eye socket, and then back up to the forehead. Now this time, as the thumbs go along the ridge of the eye socket, take them to the temples, and then we're going to slide the peace fingers down to the temples, and the thumbs are going to go down to the jaw. And you might do a little massage for the jaw. Then release the arms back down by the sides of the body. Take a long breath in and out. You can use your hands to help the legs. We're going to start to draw the knees in towards the center, knees point up towards the ceiling, and plant your feet on the ground. Heel toe your feet about hip width distance apart. You can just let your blanket rest there, no need to move it. Then reach for your strap. You're going to take the strap really wide. And then extend the arms up towards the ceiling. So we did this last night if you were in the 6 o'clock class, and we also did it this morning in a different way. And now we're exploring it in a whole other way because we're in a little bit of a back bend here, right? So I normally would cue you to hug the rib cage in and keep your abdominal muscles engaged. But for this, I want you to just feel a little bit more opening across the front of the body as you start to take your arms overhead. So it's a bit more of a chest opener. And your hands may come down to the ground overhead, or they may not. They may need to hover quite a bit. And if it feels really tight, I want you to take your hands wide so that you have a little bit more freedom to move. Then we'll go arms up towards the ceiling again, and then down towards the sides of the body. Yeah, now let's do this with the breath. Inhale to reach the arms up, and then exhale as the arms go overhead, any amount. Inhale as the arms go up, and you exhale as the arms come down along the sides of the body. Twice more. And then last time. Now, the next time the arms come down along the sides of the body, you can move the strap to the side. Keep the arms resting on the ground. Turn your palms to face up. You're going to imagine making a snow angel just with the arms. So you'll begin to slide your arms overhead. Move really slow. So you might notice a point where it could be that the chest is a bit tight or the shoulders tight and the elbows start to hover, or maybe it's the hands that start to hover. Either way, don't take the arm as far and see if you can keep the elbows and the hands resting on the ground. And so maybe the snow angels are really small. There's nothing wrong with that. Just move a few times like that. And the next time the arms come down along the sides of the body, you're gonna make sure the feet are hip width distance. Press the feet down and lift your hips up just a few inches. Then allow the pelvis to sink a little heavier so you can feel the curve of your low back is emphasized. So normally in bridge pose, we scoop the tailbone towards the ceiling. What I want you to do here is keep your hips lifted, but allow that arch of the low back to be emphasized. So it's kind of like your pelvis is dropping an inch heavier to the ground. And can you tone the lower abdominal muscles without scooping your tailbone towards the ceiling? Just take a breath there. Then with your exhale, release the hips back down. Take your knees as wide as the mat. Start to windshield wipe your knees side to side. It's going to be a small movement or it could be big. Up to you. Now the next time the knees go to the right, we're going to roll off our blanket. Bring your left hand down or off the bolster, whatever you're using, and then come up. So you're just kind of seated on your right hip. We're not going to come all the way up. We're just on the right hip. Yeah. Now take your bolster, your couch cushion, your blanket, whatever it is, and you're going to slide it right up to your right hip. You can reposition your legs however you like. So some like to draw the left leg to stack on top of the right. I kind of like mine to be more separated. You're going to take your hands and frame your prop. Yeah. Then start to rotate your chest towards the prop. And the more you rotate, you may realize that you need to find a different position for your leg. Like maybe that left leg does need to stack a little bit more on top of the right. You're going to lower your chest down towards the bolster. Bring your right cheek to your prop. If you want to move into a deeper twist, like if you want more stretch and sensation, you can push into the hands, lift the torso up, and you imagine wrapping your rib cage over to the right. And only if it feels comfortable for the neck, you can bring your left cheek down. Now we're just going to stay here for 2 full breaths. So I invite you to feel the breath expand the entire torso in this twist. And with the exhale, you feel everything kind of hug in and sink down towards your prop. Now let's bring the hands a little bit more underneath the body to support us. Push into your hands and come all the way up. Now you're going to unwind to face the front. Bring the soles of the feet together and let your knees drop down. Take the hands and place them behind you. You can frame your prop with the hands. We'll draw the shoulder blades in towards the spine and lift the chest. Press the soles of the feet together. So you start to feel the inner thigh, like the adductor muscles engage, and then lift your knees just a few inches so you're resisting gravity. Keep that engagement of the inner thigh, the leg, and lift your chest 1 more inch. Take another breath in. and out. Now you can let your knees drop a little heavier to the ground, walk your hands forward. Yeah, if you want support, you can always slide the bolster underneath your hips here. We're gonna be here for a little bit. You're gonna take your right hand and walk it out. I'll mirror you guys. And you're gonna lean into that hand. Take your left hand to the inside of the thigh. Now I want you to gently push with your hand, but not in order to bring your knee down to the ground. Instead, I want you to resist. Take the thigh and squeeze back into the hand. So your hand is pushing down and then your leg is pushing up, and you start to feel the engagement of the inside of the leg or the adductors. And what you might also feel is that hip feels a bit more grounded or rooted. Now let your hand win a little bit. It's not about forcing the knee down, but maybe start to feel the stretch as well. And then release that. Opposite side. So you'll take your left hand out, right hand to the inner thigh. You're going to take your hand, gently push into the thigh. The thigh is going to squeeze back. You can feel the sit bone root down. And then allow the hand to win just a little bit. Good, and then release. Now lean over onto your left hip. You're gonna start to bring the hands down to frame. Take your right leg back, whether it's away from the left or stacked on top of the left. Rotate your chest towards your prop. And with your exhale, start to fold and rest the torso on top of your prop. Bring your left cheek down at first. In order to bring the right cheek down, we have to rotate the spine a bit more, right? So it's this even rotation or twist. So only if you're wanting more sensation, more stretch, or even more compression in the twist, you'll push into your hands with your torso up some, wrap your rib cage over to the left, and then come back down. Maybe the right cheek comes to your prop. Two full breaths here. Now we'll bring the hands underneath us to support. Push into your hands, come up. Unwind back around to the front of the mat. Extend your legs out straight. Give them a little shake. Then take the feet about as wide as the mat. Place the hands on top of the thighs, and with your inhale, sit up as tall as you can. Reach up through the crown of the head. Sweep your arms out and up with an inhale. Start to bring your right hand down. Keep your left hip really rooted. Bend the right elbow and maybe move a little bit more into the lateral. Then back to center and opposite side. That's it. And then back to center. So you can either cross the ankles and roll over the ankles and come to tabletop, or sweep your legs around. You can move the bolster out of the way. Maybe instead you grab your blanket to pad the knees. We'll come into a tabletop position where the hands are underneath the shoulders and the knees are underneath the hips. Then take the right leg and extend it back behind you. Push back into the heel. So you might feel a stretch for the calf, or maybe it's the Achilles tendon, or even the sole, the arch of the foot. Then stack the shoulders over the wrist. Pick your right leg up to hover. Bend the right knee. Imagine the sole of the foot is flat on the ceiling, so the foot's pointing straight up. Push your right hand into the ground. Come to the fingertips on your left hand. Or if you're feeling stable, take your left hand to the low back. And I just want you to make sure that your pelvis is level, one hip's not way higher than the other. And you can feel the natural curve of your low back here. We're not collapsing to where it's overly arched. We're also not rounding. And this is one way that we create strength around the hips. We're engaging the glutes here, the core, so it can help to stabilize the sacrum to do work like this. You might push up through the right heel to feel your glutes engage a little bit more. Release the left hand down. Yeah, and then re-extend the right leg. Cross the right leg over to the left and then tuck the toes under on the floor. Arch the rib cage to the right, look over your left shoulder. And then play with pushing into the right hand so the right rib cage lifts. Maybe there's a subtle rounding in the back of the body versus extending and lengthening, like the heart's going to go forward and arched over to the left. And come back to center, pick up the right leg. Now sweep the leg out to the right, kind of like an airplane wing, and release the foot down. I'm going to wake up that hip by doing little movements forward and back. When you take your hips back, you may feel a pretty big stretch for the inside of the leg. Just be mindful we don't feel it at the back of the knee. Good. Stack the shoulders over the wrists. As you heel toe your right foot around to the outside of the right hand, you may want to get up on your fingertips, or you may want to grab your blocks. And eventually, right foot will be right outside of that pinky finger. Draw the heart forward through the arms. Take an inhale. And then exhale. Now, heel toe that right foot in another inch or two, so your hand can go to the outside of the foot. Imagine you're trying to drag your left shin forward and your right foot back, so the legs feel fairly engaged here. Then bring the hands to the top of the thigh. Yeah. Now, tone the front of the body, just so we're not overly arched here. And take the arms either out or up, whatever feels comfortable for the shoulders. So often what we do in Anjaneyasana is we allow the pelvis to sink forward and down to get that stretch in the quads. But what I want you to do is take your awareness to the left outer hip, the glutes, the hamstrings, and start to contract. And then from the contraction of the back of the leg, you might feel a little bit more opening along the front of the leg. And you can let your pelvis come just a tiny bit forward or down, but it's not about just kind of sinking into the flexibility. There's a little bit of resistance here, thanks to the back of the left leg. Good, and release. Hands come down. Heel toe that right foot out. And as your hips move back, right shin meets the left. You can come back down to your palms if you're on your blocks. Move your hips side to side. Now, as we come to center, left leg extends back, tuck the toes under. Push back through the heel. Stack the shoulders over the wrist, pick your left leg up to hover. Option to push your left hand firmly into the ground. Come with the fingertips on the right hand, or take the right hand to the low back. And you're looking for a level pelvis, the natural arch of the low back without overemphasizing the curve or without rounding. Can bend a knee, flex the foot, imagine the foot is flat on the ceiling, and then start to feel the engagement all around the hip, the glutes, the core. Right hand comes down, left leg extends, cross the leg over to the right, tuck the toes under. You can arch the rib cage to the left, gaze over the right shoulder. And feel the difference between neutral spine versus pushing into the left hand. Feel the left side of the rib cage lift. That might bring you a little bit more stretch along the top of the pelvis on the left side or the low back. Then we'll come back to center, pick the left leg up. Sweep it out to the left now, like our airplane wing, and gently release it down. Little movements forward and back. Good. All right, stack the shoulders over the wrist. Heel toe that left foot around into our wide lunge. Remember, as the foot gets closer to the hands, you might lift your hands up on blocks or your fingertips. And just pause here for a breath, trying to elongate from the tailbone to the crown of the head. And then we'll heel toe the foot in another inch or two. You're gonna place your left hand to the outside. Start to squeeze the leg like your right shin is dragging forward, the left foot is dragging back. And then utilize the strength in your legs to bring the hands up to the top of the thigh. Yeah, and then hug the front of the body in so you bring your torso straight up without compromising the low back. Then we'll start to activate the back of the right leg. When you take your awareness there, you might feel the ability to fire up the glute muscles, the hamstring muscles, and then maintain that as the pelvis shifts slightly forward or down. Option to take the arms out or up. Then release. Hands come down. Heel toe that left foot out a few inches so your hand can go back to the inside. As you move your hips back, left shin meets the right. And then press the hips back into a child's pose. Good. We're gonna come into a forward fold, a standing forward fold. I'm gonna walk you through a slow way that really gets into the feet, but that may not serve your knees or your ankles right. So you can always just make your way into a standing forward fold on your own. If you're in child's pose and you want to take this really slow, you're gonna lift the torso up, tuck the toes under, and then walk the hands back. And then this is where it starts to get intense, right? We hug the heels in, so they point straight back as they'll want to splay out. And that might give you a pretty big stretch for the soles of the feet, as well as the calves. Then come back a few more inches with your hands. Push your fingertips into the floor. Start to lift your knees. You're gonna send the heels down as slow as you can. Continue to walk your hands back so knees stay bent here. In your forward fold, release the head. Then bend the knees even more. Take your hips back a few inches so you really feel the weight in your legs. You're gonna push down into the feet, come all the way up to stand. If you wanna take the arms out and up, feel free. Then hands to the heart. So I invite you to find something to place your hand on. It can be a wall, it can be your couch. Looks like some of you have some chairs, anything really. Then we're gonna take our right hand to wall, couch, whatever. Shift weight into the right foot and bend the left knee. We're doing this standing so that we can kind of feel what happens with the rib cage and the spine when we start to lengthen the front of the thigh, the quadriceps. So what I'd like you to do is squeeze the heel towards your sit bone and then take your left hand to the rib cage. Try to find a neutral spine. So that means the rib cage kind of gently hugs in and you reach up through the crown of the head. Take another breath there. And then just take your left arm down along the side body. Now, it's not so much about a big back bend, but I want you to think of your fingers reaching towards the heel. Probably not going to connect, so you're just reaching. And then release. Take the leg forward, extend it straight. Maybe roll the ankle and release the foot. Good, just turn around so you can take your left hand to wall or furniture. Bend the right knee. Do this really slow. So the more that the heel makes its way to the right sit bone, you may notice that the rib cage wants to kind of flare forward, or maybe the right knee wants to go forward. Take the right hand to the rib cage. You're just looking for a neutral spine, all the natural curves. Then take the right arm and reach it down along the side of the body. Just open across the chest. It's not this big back bend. It's really just opening across the right side of the chest. Act as if you're reaching for the heel. That's it. Then you can relax the arm. Take the leg forward, extend it straight. Just roll the ankle. And release the foot down. You can go to the back of the mat again. You're going to bend the knees, hinge forward, come into your fold, release the arms and release the head. Walk your fingertips forward and come up about halfway. Knees can stay really bent. If your feet are wide, bring the feet a little closer together. We're going to come down the same way we got up. So you're going to walk your fingertips forward, lift the heels. If at any point this is too much for the feet or the knees, just come to a comfortable seat. Start to lower your hips down towards your heels. Bend the knees a little bit more. Let your hips get heavy. Yeah, there we are. Now start to lower your knees to the ground. Walk the hands forward. Come back into your tabletop. Release the tops of the feet down. Draw your heart forward and come into cow pose, subtle lift of the chin. With your exhale, curl in and round cat pose. Then neutral spine. Walk your hands forward another hand length more to the front of the mat. Shift forward into a modified plank. Lower all the way down to the abdomen. Take your left arm and extend it overhead. Bring your right hand back next to the rib cage. You're going to push into the right hand, roll to your left side. Your head can rest on your left arm, or you can grab your blanket and place it between the arm and your ears, like a little bit of a pillow, right? Or just support. Then pick the right leg up to hover. So now we're going to recreate what we did standing. And here it's a little more challenging because if the rib cage does splay forward, we tend to roll back onto the abdomen. Right? So you're going to bend the right knee. Squeeze the heel towards the right sit bone. Notice if your right knee is way forward of the left. Pull the knee back so it's hovering directly over the left knee. And then float your right arm up to the ceiling. Reach your right arm towards the ankle as if you're going to connect, but just hover. And if you want to challenge your balance, you're going to pick up your left leg just an inch. Take another breath here. Notice if your head is kind of pushing down into the arm to try and stabilize. Keep the neck relaxed, head heavy. Good, now re-extend the right leg. Release both legs down. You bring your right hand in front of the chest, roll to the abdomen, and then we'll switch it out. Right arm goes forward, roll to the right side. Stack left leg on top. I'm gonna pick the left leg up to hover. Then you might float your left arm up. Bend the left knee, squeeze the heel towards the sit bone. Try to keep the left knee hovering over the right. You can take your left arm and reach it towards that left ankle or heel. If you want to challenge your balance a little bit more, pick up your right leg just an inch. Take a long breath here. Release the right leg. You're going to extend the left to hover, and then both legs down. Roll to the abdomen. Walk your elbows back for Sphinx pose. So elbows right underneath the shoulders. Push your forearms down. Draw your heart forward. Long breath in. And out. You'll start to lower the head down as the hands slide back next to the ribs. And with your inhale, come into Cobra pose. Draw the shoulder blades a little more towards the spine. Use your hands to pull the heart forward, not so much to lift the torso straight up. Then release. Head comes down. Press up and back into your child's pose. Take a full breath there. And then shift forward into tabletop. So if you want to re-pad your knees, we'll be here for just a little bit. And we're gonna be balancing a bit more as well. The blanket can slide underneath the shin. And then we'll take the right leg and extend it back. We're going to take the right heel and pivot it over to the left to bring the sole of the foot down. Push into your left hand and come to your right fingertips. Now from here, you can decide how you want to position your left leg, which will determine how we're opening the hip, right? So you could stay here, or you could rotate your shin so that your left toes turn out to the left. Then take your right hand to the right hip. Now from here, you might pick your right arm up towards the ceiling. You could shift a little more weight into the left hand to lift the right heel, or you might pick your right leg up to hover and then just bend the knee and squeeze the heel to the sit bone. Take a breath wherever you are. Then re-extend the right leg if you bent the knee. Bring the foot back down. Right hand comes to the ground. We're going to pivot that left shin back in as we lift the right heel. So you're in the original position. Then lower the right knee down to the ground. Move your hip side to side. Push down into the shins. Slide your hands back. Come to kneeling, so all the way up. You might extend your arms up. Take a big inhale. Now, right hand's going to come to the right hip, lift up and over into a lateral stretch. And then back to center. Left hand to left hip. Right arm will go up and over. Lateral stretch. Back to center, take an inhale. Then hands come down to the floor. Walk the hands forward to your tabletop position. Take your left leg and extend it back. We'll pivot the heel down to the right. Come up onto your left fingertips. And then you get to decide how you're going to pivot this right shin that makes it comfortable for the hip. So maybe the shin pivots out to the right. Then you start to open your chest and take your left arm up to the sky. You might shift more weight into the right hand to lift the left heel, or pick the leg up and then bend the knee. Full breath in. This is our variation of Ardha Chandrasana, half moon. We'll re-extend the left leg and bring it down. And then left hand comes down, lift the left heel so you're pivoting back around to that original position. Then left knee meets the right. Rock your hips side to side. Good. Push into the shins, come all the way up to your kneeling position. So I'm going to give you a few options. We've kind of been working up into this posture, but there's a lot going on in this posture. It's Parigasana or gate pose. So you may keep your shins both rooted and then come back into the lateral. Or you might take your right leg and extend it out. And there's an option to either have the foot pointing forward, which is a little bit more stable because you have your whole foot on the ground. Or if you want to open the hip, you're going to push the heel down, flex the foot, and then rotate so that the thigh, knee, shin, and toes point straight up to the ceiling. So now it's just your heel on the ground, which makes balance a little more challenging. You're going to take the arms out and up if you're feeling stable. Yeah. And then option is, remember, you can have both knees down. You're going to lift up and over. Right, and that right hand can come down to hip, or if your leg is extended, it can come down to the thigh or shin, but we're not collapsing weight. Take a long breath here. Now squeeze everything into the center to come back to the center. Yeah. And then just release that knee down. Might feel good to rock your hips side to side. Good. Other side. So you can stay here in kneeling position, or you can take your left leg and extend it out. Toes can point forward. This is a little bit more stable, but it may feel like there's limited range of movement for this hip. Hard to sink this hip down. You can push the heel down, flex the foot, and then rotate thigh, knee, shin, and toes towards the ceiling. Inhale, arms might lift up. And with an exhale, move into that side body stretch. Your left hand can go to the hip, thigh, shin, or Parigasana. Long breath here. Yeah, now squeeze everything. So rib cage hugging in, legs hugging in to come back to center. Good, and release that left knee down. As you start to sit down, take your hips to the side and then bring your legs all the way around to the front. And move the blanket out of the way. Take your feet wide for Upavishta Konasana. And then just kind of check in. If it feels like the pelvis is tucked underneath and the low back is rounding, then you might use your blanket to tilt the pelvis. So you would just slide it underneath. And then you'd walk to the front edge, right? So that the sit bones are like barely on the front edge of the blanket. And we'll root down through both sit bones. This is our last lateral. You're gonna bring your right forearm on top of your right thigh. Now really root down through the left hip and start to lengthen that right side body over that right thigh. Option to stay or take your left arm up, maybe over. And if you want to move a bit more into the lateral, you could bring your elbow down to a block or to the floor, to the inside of the thigh. Now take that left arm and just kind of reach out to the side to help you up. Then bring that arm on top of the thigh. Right hand can stay at hip, can go out, up, or overhead. Root down through that right sit bone. Option to take your left elbow to a block or to the floor to the inside of that thigh. Full breath. Now take that right arm, you're gonna lower it down and just kind of reach to come all the way up and release the arms down. Take the hands behind the knees, lean back, bring the legs closer together, and then extend them out in front of you. Give them a shake. Make sure there's plenty of room to lie down. You might walk your hips forward. So there's an option to just lay down. If you want a little bit of core work on the way, you're gonna take your arms forward. Think of cat pose. So you're gonna curl in, round the back of the body, reach through your fingers, and then start to roll it down one vertebrae at a time. Once your upper back touches down, release the head and take your arms overhead. Take your feet as wide as the mat, just taking up some space for a breath. And bring the arms down along the sides of the body. Plant the feet on the floor. You can let the knees drop into the midline if that feels good for the low back, or just stay in constructive rest where the legs are kind of relaxed as they are. If you notice that the chin is tucked to the collarbone, how can you come into a little bit more of the natural curve of the neck? You might be lifting the chin slightly. Maybe you need to walk the shoulders away from the ears so the neck feels a little longer. And we'll place the arms in goalpost shape or bend the elbows for a 90-degree angle. Fingers pointing towards the back of the mat. Palms face up. Keep your left arm relaxed. Keep the right elbow on the ground, but lift the form of the fingers. So it's in that same goalpost shape, but now your fingers point up towards the ceiling with the right arm. And then don't force this because we're moving into internal rotation where the palm is going to start to come down towards the floor, right on that right side. And you'll feel the head of the shoulder kind of rolls in towards the chest. And you might have to pause about 6 inches above the ground. Sometimes what I notice is that my hand really wants to come to the floor, but my shoulder says no more. So my hand's moving, but nothing else. And then go right back into the external rotation. So your fingers will start to point up towards the ceiling, and then the top of the hand will come down, palm faces up. Now it's time for the left arm. Keep the elbow on the ground, lift your forearm and your fingers so they point up to the ceiling. And then nice and slow, the palm faces down. You're gonna feel the head of the shoulder start to internally rotate without force. And then allow the fingers to point up towards the ceiling. And the top of the hand comes down. Right arm, lift up. Palm starts to face down. Now here, I want you to pause and very gently roll your left ear heavier to the floor, as if left ear is going to move towards the left shoulder. And then keep the head heavy as your arm reaches up towards the ceiling again, with elbow on the ground. And then palm faces up. Bring the head to center. Now move the left arm. Go into the internal rotation where the palm faces down. Then let your right ear start to drop heavy to the right shoulder. If you feel tension or pain, you want to back out of it. Keep the head as it is, and then just allow your fingers to point up towards the ceiling. And then the top of that left hand comes down, palm faces up. Good, then gradually bring the head back to center. Sweep the arms down along the sides of the body. Wrap one shoulder blade in towards the spine, then the other. Now the whole goal here is, can we open the chest and move into bridge pose without feeling tension in the neck, without using our head as a way to lift? Meaning, can you push your shoulders gently into the ground? Push your feet into the ground and start to lift the hips. Keep the head light, because what we often do is we try to push the head down. The neck muscles get really tense and tight as a way to lift up into bridge. So neck relaxed, natural curve of the neck, right? So is the chin dropping towards the collarbone, or can you lift the chin slightly away from the collarbone? Take a breath wherever you are in this. Then release the hips down. Extend the legs out straight again. Give them a little shake. Really just kind of feels like windshield wiping your feet, and then letting that move all the way up the legs to the hips. Good. All right, bend the knees. Our last thing is going to be moving in to one last hip flexor stretch. You're going to take your right foot and slide it forward just an inch or two so you have space to take your left leg, and you're going to thread it underneath the right, kind of like you're threading a needle. Then you'll allow your left knee to drop down towards the front of the mat. And you may find that the knee wants to hover a lot, right? So you could take a block and support underneath that left knee. If you want to move a bit more into the sensation of the stretch, you can pick up that right foot. You can take your right hand and cup the knee. Or if you have a little bit more mobility in the hip, you can draw that right knee in towards the chest. And then some like to hold on to the knee with the left hand while the right hand reaches for the opposite foot, your left foot. This is one of those twister-like postures where there's a lot of lefts and rights. So you can always come out of it to look up. And I can also walk you through all the options again. And feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. So let's take a big breath here. Now, if you're holding on to the right knee, let's release that foot back down. You're going to slide your left leg out, extend the left leg straight. Just pause for a breath. And then we'll move to the other side. You'll bend the left knee, plant that foot. And if the heel is really close to the left sit bone, slide the left foot forward so you have space to take your right leg and thread it underneath. The right knee drops down to the front of the mat. And we can take your block and slide it underneath that right knee for support. Left knee might hug in. Your left hand can catch the knee. Or if you're hugging that knee more towards the chest, the right hand could catch it. Left hand might reach for the opposite foot. They're all options. One's no better than the other. Really, it's just about what fits the body in this moment. Last breath here. And at the end of the exhale, release. Left foot comes down, right leg slides out. You're going to extend the leg straight out on the ground. Then plant both feet, knees bent. Take a moment to tune in. And then consider if there's any other movement that your body needs before we settle into Shavasana or meditation. So maybe you want to move into a twist where you take a block between the knees. Or maybe you want to move into Happy Baby. We're back into a Baddha Konasana shape, soles of the feet together, knees open. Take about 5 breaths. And of course, make sure that if you're doing something asymmetrical, like a twist, that you end with a symmetrical shape for movement. Simply hugging the knees in, doing some circles. Good. Last breath in your movement. And make your way. And come into seated meditation if you need to uplift your energy. Legs up the wall with some props like a bolster underneath your hips if you need something a little bit more restorative. Or Shavasana, also utilizing props, however you like. And with your next breath, take a big inhale through the nose. And then out the mouth. And just start to settle in. Before we settle into quiet stillness, I invite you to take your awareness all the way down to the feet and just begin to notice the sensations. And where you find a little bit of restriction, a feeling of tension, imagine that the breath can move into that space, maybe even a wrap around the muscles, so that as you breathe out, there's a sense of that tension leaving the body just as easily as the breath does. And you're left feeling a little more relaxed. You'll continue to move your awareness all the way up the body. I invite you to take as much time as you like and really pay attention to those places where you typically hold tension. If you haven't made your way up to the crown of the head, all the way up the body, take a couple more breaths to do so. So you're more than welcome to stay here for as long as you like. If you're ready to move your body, start by just wiggling the fingers, the
toes. You might take a deeper breath in, and then a longer breath out. You're in Shavasana, you can stretch arms and legs. And then eventually bend the knees, roll to your side, and make your way up to a comfortable seat. And just sit a little taller. And soften the gaze or close the eyes. And this practice ultimately is about presence. Right? We tune into the sensations we're experiencing in the body. We tune into the quality of the breath. It's like a slow training of the mind to be more present, so that we can eventually move with more intention, with purpose. So with that in mind, you might start to bring to the surface of the mind a quality, right? We call this intention, that we want to bring into our day. Something that we can come back to again and again and again, so that we move with intention and purpose. We speak and we act with intention and purpose. And so maybe that quality is something like compassion or self-love or strength or peace. And we'll bring our palms together, let the thumbs rest on the chest. And we'll take this energy and this intention into the day with the sound of Om, whether you listen or you chant on your end. Take a big inhale. Om. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.